works with high college seniors and their families. He's based in Riverside. I've been on the board of IEPPV for 3 years and is slated as the next president. Outside of photography, I nearly spent 20 years as administrator for UCR. I also earned a doctorate degree, which I have to say kudos to that. I've been married to my college sweetheart for over 20 years. And we have 3 wonderful children. What?
More kudos for being married so long.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is really good. Okay. And our other critiquer or analysis of the portfolios is Bob Fletcher. He started in photographing professionally in January 1970. My gosh, that's when I graduated high school. I learned photography the old-fashioned way through mentoring with established photographers, Bill Stockwell, Rocky Gunn, Monty Zucker, Dave Peters, and many others. In the late 1990s, I started using early Kodak Canon digital hybrid cameras, and also immediately hooked on the digital photography around that time. I also started working for Canon USA as a freelancer. That relationship has continued to this day. I have always mentored beginning photographers and taught them the art of and business of photography so that they would also make a living from something that they love to do. My heart is in the future. My desire is to train others. And in the present, it is a joy to share with others the love that I have for the art of photography. Did you gentlemen want to add anything to what you've already stated here or share anything? Bob has a lot of nice workshops. You might want to ask him about them. He's telling me about one that he has in January going to Yellowstone. I went there, a couple of years ago? And it was really nice. I enjoyed it. I got a lot of wonderful pictures. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to them. They're going to sit over here and we're ready to begin our.
I told them they could stand or sit wherever they wanted, as long as they're loud
Whatever
enough.
you guys want.
Okay, as long as the microphone's there, right? As long as we
Yeah.
can see.
Mike's here.
How the meeting's being recorded. Okay, let's see.
I guess what? This is zucchini bread for the microphone.
I don't know, this bread
I
looks
don't
pretty good,
know.
and the microphone can hear me say it.
Trying to get to the beginning. Click on that slideshow. Are you seeing? There we go. So the nights are photo critique night. And Bob and John, how do you want me to proceed? You want me to go through these quickly and then let you go back and review them again? How would you
How
like
many
to
do you have? How many portfolios? How many portfolios do you have?
We have about 5 portfolios.
Okay,
Wait, I'm sorry, we got 6.
12 images each.
What?
okay.
I'm sorry, Chef. 12 is
One
the
portfolio.
portfolio.
Right. About five.
About 5, okay.
Okay, Russell, what if we see one portfolio, all of the images, about 5 seconds apart, and then we go back individually?
So that would be fine. That's what I kind of wanted to figure out what you wanted to do.
Okay,
Okay. This was done by Bombay Beach and was responding to the challenge. Wayne Purcell is the author of the portfolio. I'll let you read that. Everybody read that? Okay. Yeah. All right. Was that long enough, gentlemen?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the text again. To me, and I think we could speak at the same time often. To me, the whole idea of a portfolio is to set the tone for the and the description for what you want to present. In other words, pick a subject matter, which obviously was done here, and in a sense, explain that this is great to me, having a text saying, okay, this is what I want to show in this portfolio, and then going through and showing those images. So in a sense, what you're putting together is a storyboard, a book. And that's sort of exactly what this is doing. It's an explanation of why this portfolio exists. So let's go to the next image. The only thing I don't like about this is the horizon line. You see on the top, it goes from left to right. It actually rises. Had you either stepped to the left a little bit, made it a little square, or taken it into Lightroom and corrected the perspective of it, to me, it would have been a little nicer. You have a telephone pole sticking out the top that's not necessary. Although it does give it a little bit of reality. Had it been a little square in the image, to me, it would have been a little nicer presentation.
And I think in this one, there's such a, it is a billboard, obviously, but I think if you were able to pull back and see, I can see there's a little bit of a rusted out car there. It would show, I think, more of how, I mean, how Bombay Beach probably was beautiful at one point, but we don't get enough of around it to see how it's not anymore. Also, I think the colors are a little portfolio in general, right?
Okay.
I'm looking at, we go back and forth through all the pictures from these like kind of oversaturated, like funky colors, which can be fun, then to the black and white, which I feel is really jarring, which if you're making the portfolio and you want to do that because this is a jarring thing to look at, then it makes sense. If that wasn't what you were intending, then I wouldn't do it. Oh, go back to that one, please.
Did you want me to go back?
Yeah, just right here.
You want me to go to the next one? I'm a little hard of hearing. You have to speak up a little louder.
We will.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
This one to me is a little oversaturated. I don't know. I haven't been to this particular spot in Bombay Beach, but the colors seem overly saturated to me. I probably would have reduced the vibrance a bit, maybe 5 to 7 points.
I also think because there's the, and I don't want to be an image critique, right? But the light pole in the middle and the use of the vignette, it seems like one side of the light pole, the left-hand side, you can see the clouds and then they get washed out in the right-hand side of it. And from just an image, I don't know that I wouldn't have made that decision maybe to vignette so much on this. Next, please.
To me, that's a nice presentation. The only thing, when I initially looked at it, I looked at the art and then I looked at the fence. It would have been, if you didn't want to raise the camera angle up or cut the fence out, maybe come in and vignette that bottom just a little bit. The fence is there. Doesn't mean, this is more of a photojournalistic approach. So you may not want to take it out, but hide it a little bit. Sort of, you don't want your eye to go to it. It's a secondary subject for me at this point.
This image in a portfolio that's trying to talk about the area that we're talking about, the thing that strikes me is that there's people in it. The three little heads in the bottom and the white van in the back, and that addition of people seems weird because you talk about this like kind of this wasteland and art, and then all of a sudden, actually, it looks like this is a neighborhood and maybe people live here. And that, I don't know, it doesn't fit with the story that I was hearing before. Although I like the piece in the middle, it's just, you might have moved the van and waited for the people to disappear. Next. See, we're back to the no people, right? This desert kind of feeling.
First impression to me, when we did the quick run through, you have a phone pole growing out of somebody's head. Had you stepped a foot to the right, a foot to the left, you wouldn't have had it growing out of their head. And also it's tilting, and that is easy to correct in Lightroom. It's a click of a button, really. But the pole growing out of the head is really distracting to me. You got it.
So this is kind of interesting up close, right? And there's this play with the sun there, but all I'm curious about is like, well, what did it look like further back? Kind of like I was saying before with the billboard, what further back, what is this? What is it attached to? Is this just is it an art installation, or is it just something some people did out there in this area that you've described to us as being, not a lot of people anymore? So.
And had you pulled back, it might have given it a greater perspective. I look at that and say, okay, is that skeleton 3 inches or is it full size? It's hard to say looking at it here. You have a phone pole or something back there. It might be a weed. I don't know, just sticking up. It has no perspective to me. Is it a body?
I think it's made to look like a body,
Yeah.
and it looks like someone's drove a stake through its heart.
Okay. I mean, maybe it's just my taste, but I just would not vignette so heavily, especially with something like this, because you have that red cloth, you have the texture right in the middle. Your eye's drawn already to that. You don't need to further use something to draw it in there. And again, across the portfolio, I'm thinking, is it the same artist who's taken all of these pictures? Like I'm not seeing the fingerprint necessarily of the artist on all of these. Sometimes I see the heavy vignette, and then sometimes not so much. And the back and forth with the color. So I'm talking across the board. This is not like, I like the colors here, but it's not as oversaturated as some of the other ones. So it kind of stands out to me as like, was this a different person who took this picture or processed this picture later?
Yeah, the vignette is way too heavy. It's not subtle at all. Again, when I first saw this for that 3 seconds, I looked at this and said, oh, that'd be a great black and white. But to me, what really would have made this picture, I probably had a little water pistol and thrown it by that right hand. Little mystique.
Next.
Cheryl?
Yeah.
Backing off further, this is cropped too tight to me. Is it a bathroom? Is it a dump? Is it, what is it?
And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to look at. I want to read the sign, but the toilets in the foreground are so prominent. So I don't know.
You've cut off one of the toilets. Now, maybe it was leaning against a wall. There's a wall there. I don't know. The other thing, when this came up first, if this was a book, and you see this is a vertical image, if this is on the left side, you want to make sure you have a vertical image on the right side. You don't want to put a vertical and a horizontal as opposed in a book. So if you're doing a portfolio, a flip printed portfolio or a book, make sure it's vertical and vertical, horizontal and horizontal. It disturbs the brain to do a vertical and a horizontal on the next page. So, in looking at this, maybe if you pump the contrast a little bit more, the black and white, but I would definitely if there was room, backed up and shown more of the surrounding area. Done.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Overall, I like it.
Mhm.
Uh,
I mean, I would have backed out at the saturation a little bit, and the sky's a little blown out there, but I like the composition, and it's
It almost looks, if you were doing the processing, the post-production of this in Lightroom, like maybe you push that dehaze just a little too strong. I think what John Paul said is, you've got a cold on the left and you've got warm on the right, which is interesting.
and it's nice with the stained glass.
Yeah, it really is interesting because of that different white balance in a sense. I don't know if that was actually how it is or how it was processed, but overall, I like the image. It's a good, strong image.
Would have backed up a little bit to see more here, a little less vignette. And I know timing is terrible, and if this is photojournalistic, then you can't take those cars out. But I can't stress enough that if the idea is that it's a wasteland, when we keep seeing real modern things, it just takes you out of that story that this is what I'm looking at. And instead, I'm seeing that actually it seems like a place that people go to hang out, and that feels not the story you're trying to tell.
In this image, I'm assuming whoever took the image, you were probably standing and it was about eye level. To me, it would have been a much stronger image had you taken that camera and taken it maybe a foot off the ground. Because the subject is what's right there in front of us. But had you lowered the camera, and for me, I can't get down on my knees anymore, but these new cameras have this little flip thing in the back. You just sort of flip it up, hold it down, and take a bunch of pictures, and hopefully one will turn out. But lowering the camera would have made this a much stronger image. Go ahead.
It's like a totally different photographer.
Yeah. Again, a little oversaturated. It would have been, and I'm nitpicking. Keep in mind, this is one person's opinion. But what would have been really great on this with the sky colors, walk down to that water and set your camera about a foot off the water again. One is you're going to get a really nice reflection of that sunrise or sunset. I don't know which it is, but you're going to get this strong light on the water. And here, you're not really getting anything on the water other than a few shadows off the what used to be a swing. But you could have played with the colors a little bit more and reflected it more off the water.
I think the focus here is soft. I don't know what I'm supposed to look at. I think it's the swing set, but it feels like it is not as in focus as it could be. And given how sharp many of the other images are in this, it does not strike me as the best work, but it could have really been.
One comment, the horizon straight. I like that. I am deaf. Ask my wife. I am deaf on horizons. I can see about 0.2 of a degree on a horizon, literally. And this horizon, whoever did this is well done. I like it.
Yeah.
It's cold, it's warm. It has, you can see the warmth in the water, what I was just talking about a moment ago. You can see the reflection. And if you look, you can see the reflection of, I'll call it a fish out there. That creates the complete fish because of the reflection in the water. You can see the clouds reflecting. It's a very nice image.
Yeah. As far as a portfolio though, I love this image, but it doesn't fit with all 12.
Yeah.
It again seems like this was taken by a different person, processed by a different person, and that makes it not, it doesn't tell the same story in the way that a lot of the other ones do.
Now, if that had been some whale bones out there that had been there for a year and that would be the devastation of Bombay Beach. This doesn't really speak to the devastation of the beach.
I kind of want to visit there.
Very cool place.
No, but I mean to vacation like this. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, can we just go back just a hair? What is the difference between an image review and a portfolio review? Because I heard a lot of
A
image.
storyboard.
Okay.
You're looking to tell a story in a portfolio. And this story is a little more ragged.
Okay,
The images, there's some good, strong images in there, but there's not a continuity in the images, which is what you want in a portfolio. First, you sort of have to decide what is the purpose of this portfolio? Are you presenting it to a possible client? Are you giving it as a book, as a gift to somebody? There has to be a purpose in every portfolio. So based on that purpose, there needs to be a continuity of those images, a story. Often, I've done a lot of storyboards, and initially, like when they do a movie, they sit down, they do a script. And from that script, a storyboard is created, and that script has a continuity in it. So that's sort of what you need to do in a portfolio, is you do a script first. What do I want to say, and how am I going to say it? And then you pick images that tell that story.
So,
And in here, the last few images weren't about the devastation of Bombay Beach.
But they were very pretty.
They were nice, but they almost didn't belong
In
to the
that story.
storyline.
So if you just have a subject matter, everything within that subject matter, so like mine was travel, that is the story. So it's different places, different countries, different, so is that not a
Well, like here,
portfolio?
if the storyline here is let's say the devastation of Bombay Beach. Had you started out with some of the better pictures of Bombay Beach when it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then you slowly showed the devastation, that's the story. Here, it sort of did it in reverse, and that's not the story.
And if you couldn't go back in time, which can't,
Yeah.
and take those pictures, in this case, this portfolio, the way it was presented, I think would have been better to have started with the pretty pictures and then have it
Yes.
move down. And then you could even do that with the coloring, have it as bright colors, and then that can scale down, and then we end up with more of the gritty black and white at the end. It definitely tells now a story all the way through
But
together.
He could edit his story
Sure,
and talk about beauty coming from this wasteland.
sure.
Okay.
That just wasn't in the, that wasn't in the
That's
intro.
not what he wrote. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, but now we have
So,
choice, okay.
so within that first paragraph that we read, do all portfolios have, this title, subject page, giving you the.
I think this was their only one with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Typically, they do not.
that photographer wasn't able to be here tonight, so that's why he wanted to add that
Explain.
information.
Okay.
And for me, a text, Paula, my wife, writes a lot of poems, and when she's done, I can't tell you how many books of her workshops, stuff like that. She includes a lot of text in there often, and it sort of sets the story. I don't know, she's probably done 20, 30 books, I don't know.
But I
And-
think it helps.
And as you go along telling your story, some text like that, even within the portfolio, can work well. Because it sometimes leads you through the change. Like here, the change might have been from Bombay, used to be actually a pretty cool place,
Yeah.
but slowly over time, it's become a wasteland. So,
Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
okay,
Poodles.
Are we ready for the next vote?
we
Yeah.
are.
Oh.
That's the air conditioner. So overall, right, I think I appreciate this because it's clear to the point that this is about poodles and their house, and you can see it's the same photographer. It feels like throughout the whole thing, the images, I would say at least 10 out of 12 of them look like, yep, that's you. There was a couple of where they threw a little curveball in there. But I think from that standpoint, it was nice as a portfolio. I could see that the photographer, kind of like what Robert was saying earlier, got down low, different perspectives, up high, different distances, interaction, different times of the day. So it's showing this story of their dogs, right? And that I like. And what lovely dogs they are, who apparently have a cushy life.
Um, Photography is all about light and shadows, and a subject. In this image, you have a lot of light on the poodle on the right, and really no light on the poodle on the left. I can't even see the poodle's eyes on the left. And I've noticed that throughout all 12 of these images. There's maybe 3 of them that has light on the subject. And I'll point those out as we go through. You need to be aware of where that light and where those shadows are falling. If you were to put your hand up and remove the dog from the left. The dog on the right has pretty nice lighting. The dog on the left has nothing. Had you cropped the dog on the left out, this would have been a much stronger image to me.
Next.
I like the reflection, but it's a couple of years ago, I was playing with some mirrors, small mirrors. And if you take a mirror and you slid that in there and you angled it just slightly, you'd get this incredible reflection there. Or if you had a little puddle of water, you'd get a great reflection. Here, it's sort of like maybe a polished floor, so I'm not quite sure, but it's a good attempt at telling a story. But again, look at the lighting. The lighting is strictly from the left side. It's shadowing the face. If you look at a portrait, if you're familiar with Rembrandt lighting, you want shadow on one side. But here on the left side of the dog's face, you have a strong light and almost no light on the right. The light on the left, which covers the very bulky body, should have been toned down and the shadows brought up a little bit, and maybe lose the reflection because it's not a good reflection. It would have been a nicer portrait kind of look.
I would have cropped this in just a little bit more on the right, on the right hand side where you can see the floorboard that's white and then it goes into the black. You could have lost that, and the top of the banister, I think that's what it is. You could have lost that. Like, they're just distracting features away from the main subject.
Robert, where would you put the mirror?
Right in front of your lens and get a reflection. It's play with them. Who asked the question?
I did.
Okay. play with a mirror and just take a small one, like an 8x10 piece of mirror, put it in front of your lens, then move camera and that back and forth. It's amazing what you can do. A reflection on building, I mean, a total landscape. If you've got a building and you want a reflection of the night lights or something like that, hold a small mirror in front. It's amazing what you can get.
iPads work really well.
Yeah, they do.
Stick an iPad underneath there.
Oh, okay. Again, lighting, the right one, you look at the eyes. You see that bit of light in the eyes. You see nothing on the dog on the left. You've got to look at your lighting. Now, I love the fact that they're doting on each other, or at least the one's doting on the other one. That's great. The one on the left, I don't know if that's movement or focus, depth of field, but it's soft, but the subject is the one looking at us. At first I looked at it like, oh, but then the more I thought about it, it's like, I like it. It's not a great image, but it's a loving image.
Mhm.
Look at the light. Where the subject is, which is the eyes, there's no light there.
I mean, I can see a specular highlight, but it wasn't strong enough
Yeah.
to light up the orbs where the eyes are. And it seems like there was a lot of light coming from overhead, but I also would have cropped it a little bit. So this was taken directly in the sun outside. And so it's well lit, right?
Well lit.
Yeah.
And actually, you can see the sun's just off to the right shoulder of the taker, because you can look at the shadow and see where it is. It's not a strong image, but just part of the story. This is a storyboard. You're telling the story of obviously two pets here. I'm assuming there's only two poodles, and
yeah,
part of the story. That almost looks like a drone picture to me.
I love it, but I would have
do.
I would have cropped or removed the things, you know, that little whatever's
chairs.
sticking out and the chairs on the
Yeah,
top.
yeah.
Just clean it up and it would look so nice.
It's a good image. Lighting, you know, you can tell the direction of it, but the lighting's pretty decent on this one. It's not on the subjects, it's a directional looks like from the top left coming down on them. But the subject isn't the face. The subject is the fact that you have two dogs, which are either sleeping or totally relaxed, almost a smaller duplicate of the other one. If you look at the legs, the way they're laying, I mean, it's
a lot of fun.
Yeah. Look at the light. You see the face? And you would be surprised what a little bit of reflection, if you had an 8x10 piece of paper almost, and just held it over here and got a little bit of light on that nose and the eyes, you can't even see the eyes. Just pulling that shadow up, and you might have been able to do that in Lightroom, even to just go into shadows and pull it up. You got to be real careful of noise when you do that, but I would have brought the highlights down from the left and brought the shadows up a little bit. But I like the fact that the head is well lit. Just got to get a little more light on the nose and the eyes.
If you shot this in RAW, and it doesn't look noisy at all over here, in Lightroom, I feel like you could do a radial gradient kind of over that area and just raise the shadows from the eye to the snout. You could do that and just isolate it in that area and probably bring that up very safely, right? And then have it look nice. And maybe do another one right across the chest just to bring that up, because I know there's a collar there. I can see it just a little bit, and I don't need to see it brightly, but just a little bit more. But the other side of that, though, is now that we've said all that, I do like that the dog's looking down, and this is real contrast. You see how dark it is in the back. You know, this is the first picture where the dog looks like maybe it's had a stressful day, and you know, that could be part of their life too. Sad.
First impression when I looked at this is, why'd you cut the toes off?
Mm-hmm.
It would have been I mean, had you stepped back 6 inches, you wouldn't have cut the feet or the paws or the toes or whatever it is. It's cropped too tight on the bottom. I like the overall image. It's one of those relaxed, part of the storyboard. But be careful that you don't cut feet. It's like when you photograph flowers, don't cut the tips of the end of the flower off. I've seen that too often. Show the complete subject, and here the subject's cropped a little too tight. I'm assuming that's some sort of a curler. And maybe somebody just finished a perm, I don't know. But again, look at the eyes though, there's no light in the eyes, there's no catch light. They're what I call dead eyes. They have to have a little bit of light in them.
And this is the one that stuck out to me is it seems like there's no detail in the hair or anywhere. I would almost think that maybe it was shot with a camera phone up close, because it doesn't have the detail that I would expect from other cameras. I love this perspective. And really the lighting.
Looks like a wide angle lens, I'm assuming, that you're fairly close. It's a good part of the story. Look at the lighting. Your subject has no light on it whatsoever. The only way you could have, obviously the light's coming from the outside, the big overhang. The only way you could have lit this well is maybe a reflector in there or a small strobe setting off to the right a little bit with just a hint of light, but you can't see the subject. The subject here is that backyard and the overhang, because that's what you see. Sort of like I wish some of my afternoons could be.
Mm-hmm.
It's not back up one, Russell. It's go one more forward. It's not a great image, but to me, it's a good ending image to this.
Mhm.
It's okay, the day's over. I am down for the day. I've just had my meal because you remember on the last image, there was a dog bowl there. It was empty. Now is my relaxed time. It's a good last image to a portfolio.
What I was thinking of as a portfolio is a calendar.
Mhm.
This makes me think that this was done as a different picture for each month. They're all related, but it's a portfolio calendar seems to be about the same thing.
Well, I just want to make an observation. What we're talking about in this portfolio here, a lot of your portraiture when you're photographing people really applies to the same thing when you're photographing animals.
Yes.
So if you could do well in photographing and do well in portrait of people, you could also do very well in portraiture of animals.
Yes.
If you like them, yeah.
People or animals?
Right.
We're not sure which.
Yeah, but people pay more money. Okay.
Now, you'd be amazed what they pay for their animals.
That's true.
Yeah. I've seen some astronomical.
They'll pay more for their animals than they will for their children. Many times. I'm sorry.
Awesome places. Well, don't go so fast.
I'm sorry, I went too fast.
Okay, obviously this one is yours, Russell.
Yeah, I know, and you can just be just as honest as you want to be with me, that's fine.
Okay, what's the purpose of
Yeah.
this portfolio?
I just like some of the awesome places that I stood in front of. So really, it was just to show what I was thinking, some of my better work.
Okay.
I
Because
didn't
you're
give
sort of,
definition to it.
you're sort of going back and forth on subjects a little bit. There's not a continuity to the subjects, the order that they're in, more than anything. The images are outstanding.
Yeah, I realized that. I was just in a hurry to.
Yeah.
Put about 12 of them together. These were, I thought, and I didn't really make a real good order of them, so.
So this one, obviously, I've seen, so.
Yes, I know. You gave me some suggestions on it.
So in this case, I think then your portfolio really would have been maybe better instead of awesome places of like your portfolio, like this is your work. So instead of looking at a story in particular, right? Maybe now we're looking at a collection of your best works.
That's what I was trying.
Yeah.
My better work. I wouldn't say I don't think it's my best work.
No, I just want your
But it's
best
my
work.
better
Yeah, your
work.
better work. Okay.
Yeah, one of the points, and John Paul and I were talking about this prior, when you do a portfolio, whatever your subject matter is, make sure it's your best images. Especially if you're looking to make some money at this. It's got to be your strongest images. If it's one that you look at and if it wouldn't score an 85 in an image competition, you may not want it in there. Just make sure whatever is in there is the best that you can absolutely do with that subject, that location, whatever it is.
See, I was thinking we were going to see a bunch of horses and I was excited. And then the whole portfolio could have been called Horsing Around, but it's beautiful.
Maybe I should have called this workshops, because some of these came from workshops that I was at, so.
Strong image. The only thing I don't like about this is that is too centered.
Mhm.
It needs, it's right in the center. It needs to be off to the right or the left. And if I remember, it's the only vertical you have in there. You should have had another vertical next to it. So the image is good, but you need to show more to the right or more to the left.
But definitely show more
I
to
think
the
there's some
left.
on the right or left. I'll have to figure it
Yeah.
out. And then there's AI, I can just sit there and add some.
Yeah.
Well, but while we're saying right or left, I would definitely move the
So
center
which way would you go, to the right or to the left?
to the right because you have that other little
Yeah.
cactus sticking up and it's distracting. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be there.
So.
I would have added
to the
more,
left.
added more to the left side.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
Yeah.
Ready to go to the next
Mhm.
one?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, looking at this, I like it, but half of it, I can't see anything. I don't see any detail on the lower half of the image. And there's no reason for that to be there.
So I should cut that off. then.
I would cut it way off. Make it a panoramic. I like the moon, the light. I would
Mhm.
probably literally squeeze this into a panoramic.
I just like the effect of the moon that was there. I could not get any detail. There simply wasn't any detail at that time of day. It was more of a silhouette there,
Yeah.
so I tried to bring out some of it, but then I was looking at a bunch of noise.
Well, you can also do a multiple exposure and stack the two together, an HDR image per se. So if you want a little more detail in the bottom, because there is a road down there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of detail there, but had you overexposed that lower portion and then layered it, you would have shown more of the detail.
Yeah.
There's actually a house down there,
Sorry, I went off that too soon.
Where is that?
What?
Monument Valley.
Thank you.
So. And this one took me out of your portfolio again, because I'm like, oh, now is it about places or is it about like our place in the universe, the sky? So I'm saying portfolio wise, when you called it places, I was like, well, yes, obviously it's a pretty place, but we don't even care about the place as much as you cared about the stars, which are beautiful, but it's a different story.
And this would have worked better with your vertical. Put your Monument Valley first, and then your vertical next to this one,
Okay.
opposed to it.
Bob, to clarify, when you say next to, you mean physically show two pictures on,
No.
The slide?
If most portfolios are a book.
okay,
Okay, so like I said earlier, to do a vertical on the left side and the horizontal on the right, it confuses the mind. If you had put, this isn't really quite a vertical, it's more square, but it looks more vertical. It's not a nice horizontal image. But if you're gonna do this in a book, which, if you're gonna do a presentation to most people, you want a book, you want prints.
It is kind of a place, I get what you're saying about the stars, but there's only certain places where you can see that many stars. So like, it's a little bit about, you know what I mean? I get
Oh,
what you're
yeah.
saying.
Well,
Yeah.
certain places and certain,
Maybe this
dates.
would be better in the end though, because then you're kind of like all the places, but like, and I know Russ said, like, this is the portfolio of his best work, but to me, it's really inspirational when I see pictures like this, that pop up on Instagram, like, I want to go there.
Mhm.
I want to go there, you know, you could have little descriptions of the places, like just knowing that's Monument Valley, like, I want to go there, you know, like,
well, you have some extremely dark skies here within 2 hour drive. You have
yeah.
Trona Pinnacles, you have Joshua Tree. You have some very dark skies
Yeah.
in Southern California that you can take these.
Yeah.
But for us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's sort of like July into October, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
The galactic center's gone. So this would have been nicer had you had a wider angle. You're sort of, the galactic center's there, but you cut off the top left corner a bit.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's hard for me to see some of that stuff at night.
I know.
And then it's hard to get it centered in the lens. I think this is a 14 mm that I was on a full frame camera. Maybe. I'd have to go back and look at the date, see which camera it is, so.
That's nice.
It's an awesome place.
I would have toned down the highlights just a bit. That center is, it doesn't look like there's any detail in that white in the center.
Oh, right in the middle?
Yeah. It's a good, strong image though.
Where's that, Russ?
That's in Sweet Creek up in Oregon.
Oh, I've been there, I
Creek
thought
there.
so, thank you.
That was just,
That's
you know, it
awesome.
wasn't a very big waterfall. There was a log in the background where the water was running down, and then I just darkened everything around it because I just simply wanted to focus on the waterfall.
Yeah.
And the other stuff was all distracting.
I mean, from a portfolio, I'm like, we just went from a beautiful waterfall, serene, to,
San Diego.
wow. Here we are.
Yeah.
And it's just, the story is,
It's not a secret.
yeah, the story is not there.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
again, you did put two cityscapes together, which is
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
What hit me when I saw this one has nothing to do with the image itself, is that you said places, and suddenly I was like, but now we're not just watching places, we're watching things that happen at places, and that feels different in my story. That you could have been here without fireworks, and that would have been fine, because that's what the story that I got was, but this is like now the firework picture, which is different. It's a different story again. But I get what you're saying. This is just some of your better work, and I like this. I mean, I like firework pictures, so.
Strong image.
Mhm.
What?
Very strong image. But see, you're jumping back and forth again.
Yeah.
And again, you're a vertical.
Again, I did not put
Yeah.
them in order,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
That's what I need to do is
Yeah.
work on getting a better order.
Had you titled this My Best Work, this would have been a good portfolio. But you need to present your best work. Because if you present it, somebody looks at it.
Calling it awesome places, would it measure up to being awesome?
Yeah.
When you say fantastic, does it reach that level of where it's at? So.
And as always, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Mhm.
You guys may look at something, and if you took the image, to me, an image is always about taking you back to that moment. If I've taken the picture, we do Iceland tours. The instant I see that, I saw your one Northern Lights in Iceland. I remember it was 16 below zero and it was cold and my fingers were freezing. That's the whole idea of an image is if you're the maker, to take you back there instantly. You'll remember the smells, the fact it was chilly, or it was extremely hot, or it was a difficult place to get to. That's the whole purpose of an image for you as a maker. But the viewer, they don't have all of that behind them. They don't have that frame of reference that you have as the maker of the image. They just have the strength of the image to look at and say, is it a good one? What does it say to me as the viewer?
There's a reason why I went back to this one, just for the benefit of the members. I have this one on display. It's a little bit brighter. It's over at the Redlands Art Association. If you want to go take a look at, I actually took the lights and the lights off to the left, and it was a little bit brighter on the image, not so dark. And I just thought I'd make that mention. And I put a red thing around it. And then my wife said, "It won't sell, honey." It sold. So I did a reprint. Okay. Are you ready for the next one?
We are.
I'm sorry, I'm going to.
No, you're fine.
Let me go back.
Okay, Bruce, I'm going to take it that these are high school senior portraits?
Yep.
Okay.
Hey, Bruce, I really like this one. I didn't have to comment on, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So do I.
Overall, I think it's a good portfolio. It's a good presentation. If Bruce was trying to impress a high school senior that, gee, I'd love to get paid $500 to take your senior portrait, this would do the job. It would convey to that person that I can tell in my image who you are, what you do, what's the fun things you do, what excites you, what's your favorite sport, things like that. Overall, it's a very good portfolio. Let's go through some of the individual images.
Yeah.
Good image, good color, well centered. Not every image has to be off center. This is one of those that the subject's dead center and it works. Again, works. It's not dead center. It's a little bit off, which works well, but his sword and his head is turning in the direction, looking in the direction that has space. Had it been dead center or cropped even, more to the left, it wouldn't have worked as well.
I'd like to know why they're wearing earbuds, but.
That's because I'm a half mile away and I said, move to the left.
Okay. Yeah, because I was like, you had to be getting some compression on that lens.
Yeah, no, that's a
So
good
you were
image.
about a half mile away. What was your millimeter on the lens using a 600?
Yep.
Yeah. Love the expression.
Face is a little too hot. The trees and everything else looks great. It's an awkward looking hand. The hand looks odd.
The other thing, and I also take lots of senior pictures, and I hate the reflection off of the gowns because the skin is all blue on the hand, the back of the neck. And there's different things you can do to fix that if you want, but yeah.
I would have toned down the arm a little bit too. The lighting on his arm is equal to the lighting on his face, and the subject is the face, not the arm.
I can see that.
Strong
Yeah.
image, little too hot for my taste. I would have brought it down a little bit. I think the colors are good. They're not overly saturated. Um,
I like the eyes.
and obviously somebody likes video games.
Mhm.
So that's part of building a story here is what do these teenagers like?
What do you mean by hot? Sorry.
A little overexposed.
Okay, thank you.
I would say don't cut off the tassel. You got the numbers there, but the tassel gets cut. And I think you could have backed up just a little bit here in general and centered her a little bit more to the right. Also, is this you? You took these pictures?
That is not me.
Okay, that's not you. That's not you. You are the
But
maker.
I did take the picture.
You are the maker. So it's popular for many women of this age to use too much highlighter on their nose, and she did. And so to tell your makeup artist to not do that because you like to dodge and burn your own images, or to tell your models to not do that because once that highlighter is on there, the makeup, it's super reflective and it will always look super reflective and get to be way too hot in all your pictures. And she'll maybe hate it someday.
The hands are well posed on this one. You look at the
So true.
fingers, they're nicely curved.
Mhm.
It holds the cap and gown, or cap in this case, well. Yeah, the tassel should never be cut off.
Excellent hands.
Just curious, Bob, would this have been better, maybe shot more like a vertical or shot more like a vertical?
Possibly, but then, actually, I would have probably backed off a little bit so I could read I'm assuming that says family behind her. If you'd gone vertical, you would have cut all of the recognizable letters off and not been able to read it. And my mind would have been jumping back and forth between her face and the letters and saying, what does that say? It's a competing subject. So had you backed off a little bit, Bruce, and maybe been able to read a little bit more, that would have shown the tassel in its entirety and the word in its entirety.
So let me ask you this, would a better portfolio have been just of one of the people?
What do you
And
mean?
12 images
Mm,
just of this
no.
gal?
Not necessarily. You want to show, because I could look at one person and say, okay, is this the only high school senior you've ever photographed? Here, you're showing all of your work, the fact that I'm versatile. I can take whatever you like and make a good image out of it.
Yeah, you went all over the place too. It shows you're willing to go to Joshua Tree or Big City or whatever. That's cool.
Like I have one that shows a wide variety, right? And then I've done a featured session, which is really then where it's like, look what yours could look like. This is you, right? In this one, you can see I can go all sorts of things, but also if you want to see like what one actual session looks like, that's that. So I have two set up for clients to look at.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You said that if they cannot see or recognize the word family, it makes it more compelling to them than if they could see the word and immediately recognize it, that makes it less compelling? Is that
Well,
what logic?
okay, and for me, looking at this right now, I look at her and then I look at that word. That word is distracting to me because I've got to think about what it says. So my mind goes away from the subject to the word. Does that make sense?
It does, because so if you can immediately recognize what the word is, you spend less time being
Thinking
distracted
about
by
it, yes.
Okay, I got it.
What was
I
your
was
question?
gonna ask, would it be better just to get rid of the letters and just have all the brick, solid brick?
Maybe.
It
You've
doesn't
always got to
add.
be considerate of your background. Earlier we saw that one at Bombay Beach where the pole was growing out of the head. Some time ago, I think it was a wedding we were doing. I had put the bride in front of, unknowingly, in front of a, forget what that was. It was a palm tree. And when I looked at the images, she had this beautiful palm tree, it looked like a hat. And it's like, oh, are you kidding me? I spent a lot of time in Photoshop taking them out. So, yeah, be considerate of your background. Is it a secondary subject? And does my mind go back and forth between the primary subject and the secondary subject? And in this case, you don't want it to.
So Bob, just a little bit more clarification. If we were sitting back and maybe reshooting.
I didn't know it's popular.
If we have the opportunity. to,
That's interesting.
Would it, if you wanted to emphasize the family, would it have been better for her to step more forward and you as a photographer a little further back?
Well, you could throw that out of focus. I'm not sure. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I was really keeping about the focus. That just means you use a greater depth of field, but would it be better to have her step away if you wanted the family in there? But then also you step back further?
Okay, maybe, I see what you're saying. Maybe a better way would have been to put her left shoulder almost against that wall. You move against the wall and throw those letters totally, you don't even see them. You see something there, but they're nothing because they're so out of focus. So you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. I just was looking at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, this would have been a great image if her family was there and mom and dad stepped in next to her and he backed off and said, family, there's family. Would have been a natural,
Jennifer, I think the other words are about a business, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next one.
but it wouldn't have fit in the portfolio. First impression, you cut his feet, you almost cropped them off. They're there, but they need a little more space.
I didn't, the person who put it in the PowerPoint did.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Also, you're showing the bottom of their foot, which I mean, when you took, I don't know that it's needed, right? Like you could have cropped it up higher, like what do the shoes add?
His ankle could have been broken and he just didn't want to show it broken.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
possible.
it's sort of a ugly pose. It's not as nice as your fingers were on the cap and gown image.
Yeah. Also, just watch the boys with stuff in their pockets.
Yeah. And again, first impression, when I first saw it, your leading lines take you right out of the image. They don't lead you into the image. You go, the English language goes from left to right. If you're Chinese, it goes from right to left. But in this case, you go from left to right. What does it do? It leads you directly out of the image. So you got to be careful of those leading lines. Whereas
His eyes just keep going and we
Yep.
just focus on.
it goes, boom, it's gone. And you slow down when you hit the subject, but then you continue
so much
on
more.
right out of right out of the image. So this might have been, it's part of the story, but it's not a great part. I'm sorry, Bruce.
Do I put them on?
Yeah, don't cut the stole off. Like where you can cut the stole, right? But there's something there. Now I want to know, like, what school did they go to? There was something important there. Also, you didn't need that the parking lot sign. Just
The subject is the buildings,
mhm.
and that's not what you want in this portfolio.
Maybe if you just gotten lower, and those could have been in the background. But also the mirror behind them. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
But you didn't have the building come right out of the top of his head. Love it, except for the people in the background.
It's a little hot. I probably would have brought that background down a bit, because the light on your subject competes with the light. It's an equal amount of light on the background, and you need to have less light on the background. But it's a good, strong image. I love the arch. I mean, it frames him, if you had a step to the right a little, because you can see how his hand is just outside of that arch. Had you stepped to the right just a little bit and put both of those hands within that arch, it would have been a stronger image.
I like it a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good image.
Hmm.
Needs to be next to a vertical one though. Again, a strong image, except for that rock coming out of his head in the back.
Step over.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if you'd have just stepped to the right 6 inches, it wouldn't have been so. I would have put her left hand on those teeth right there.
How about her hand going up like this?
So I think one of the things that, I mean, I think that the pose is fine, right? Like I would have gotten lower though. You can see on the wall on the left how you're shooting down on her. If you had just come down lower so you could shoot a little more straight on, that would have straightened that door. You know, you could crop that in a little bit and
You know, if you got down a lot lower, this would really go well on other websites.
I didn't say that.
And I'm sorry, I agree with the lower, but she's got
Yeah.
too short of a skirt to go very low.
to go
with this.
too low.
Yeah, you've got to be really, these days, you have to be extremely careful of that kind of stuff.
Maybe navel level would have helped straighten that out
Yeah.
a little bit.
When you're working, especially with teenagers, and you're a man and you're working with girls, have an assistant, a female assistant with you. Absolutely, don't do it alone.
Yep. Also the bruises on her knees or on her legs are a good thing to think about taking off if she didn't ask for it already.
They were birthmarks.
Oh, then they're fine to leave. I can't see it real well.
No,
I probably, you see how the building tilts on the left? You've
Mhm.
got that, I either would have straightened it a little bit or just cropped that out.
And that's where getting lower would
Yeah.
have helped, but next one. I'm definitely taking pictures there.
Again, it's hot.
Yeah.
You have more light on the far background than you do on him.
Mhm.
You could have easily pulled that down. That background I'd have taken down probably a stop and a half, 2 stops, and him down probably 2/3 of a stop. I like the image though.
Mhm.
It's just overly,
Right.
it's just too hot.
Next.
We're gonna bypass this at this time because we're running short on
Okay.
time.
Okay.
But we have some picture portfolios that we would like to look at and put on the screen.
Okay.
So we'd like to do that at this time, and I'm not sure how to do this, so Bob and John, if you'll both come over here, what we could have you do is take a look at the portfolios, how they're put together, and then, you know, critique them as you would like. I'm gonna turn on the light so you have better light on these. There are 2 sets here. We've got them set up so, don't know if this will help me. Yeah.
Bring the image down. That's for the screen. Oh. Oh, really? And then that's sideways. That's
Yeah.
sideways. Oh, sorry.
I'm moving it, I'm sorry. Rather than have it move the picture, I'm trying to have it.
Are you saying it's supposed to be like this? Because I don't.
No,
think so.
I was mistaken.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah, they just can't. Okay, very well on this. So I just.
Are they Russ's picture? Oh.
It's 8:30. 8:30 is typically when we stop. So if you want to jet, feel free. This would be a good time to sneak out. If you want to stay, please do, because I find this fascinating.
I hope this has been helpful to you guys.
Gonna need another.
It's been helpful to me, Bob. I can't speak for anybody else. What are your thoughts out there? Has this been helpful to all of you?
Yes.
Okay.
This part emphasizes the importance of printing your work. We're so used to just everything being digital.
Yeah.
But there is nothing like a print.
Yes, I hear Paula. She hates my digital stuff. She
So
prints
Russ,
everything.
can you center the photos?
Just, here, let's do this. It's easier to do this, so.
Yeah.
There we go.
Thank you.
These are pictures of wildlife, let's move the camera.
So, I mean, I flipped through them. I don't have obviously there's no name for this, and I don't really know what the story is, because we kind of go all over the place from what appears to be, like, oh yeah, you're there.
Yeah, I've never done a portfolio. I only just started doing this about a year ago, and I was invited to come here by this very nice gentleman here after my first art fair a couple of weeks ago. So I was told to bring my 12 best. So, this is my best work.
Okay. There you go.
And I have autism, so I see colors at night very differently. So the challenge for the last year has been to try to make prints that look like how I saw them. So I know the color balance, I'm learning, the color balance will often look different to normal. But I think the first goal was, can I at least make something look like how I saw it, so that I'm happy with it? And then let's take it from there and see if people accept it as something that.
Just a quick comment on this image. You have movement in the people, which obviously,
Yeah, deliberately.
yeah. Sometimes it would be nice if you do an image like this and then do your next one, a very long exposure, even if you have to put an ND, neutral density filter, do a 5-minute exposure, all those people disappear.
I did some of those and I didn't like them as much. I mean, one of the things about autism is we were uncomfortable around people. So part of the art was trying to capture sharp stars and buildings and people a little bit fuzzy and blurred out. So they're there, they're people, but because that's kind of how
Yeah, it's more than a little bit fuzzy though.
yeah.
Had there been a recognizable face of some sort, it would have been a little bit better, but yeah, it's a fairly long exposure, but I get the idea.
Yeah, still learning.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you sharpen this image?
No,
No? It looks like it's been sharpened somewhat, or it's also probably a little too contrasty. It's a good image. Had you backed away a little bit, these spires are just a little too tight. Had you backed off just a little bit, maybe that would have been a little bit nicer, but it has a lot of contrast in it.
Are these digital images that have been printed, or are they film
they
images that have
were
been
all
printed?
shot digitally. They were all shot on a digital camera.
When do you use Lightroom?
I Photoshop and Bridge.
Okay.
Those are what I've learned.
Is the bird added, or was the bird there?
No. That bird was up at Half Moon Bay Beach, jumping around. I call this, I have the story written on the back of each one about what that was. This one is called the Ninja Gull because it kept leaping up just as this waves crashed over it and just was out of reach, and repeated it enough so I was able to catch it in there.
It's an interesting image. It's confusing to my mind. What is the background?
Yeah.
It looked like it could have been almost an underwater image with bubbles
Oh,
coming
yeah,
out.
yeah. That's a wave breaking about 6 inches behind it.
Okay. Nice image. You cut the feet off though.
They were running though, so that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, but as far as a photojournalistic type of image, the lighting is nice. You have nice light on, the faces are well lit. Overall, it's a good image.
I would have backed up a little bit, so you not cut the bottom of that tire off and maybe have been able to throw the back trucks out of focus a little bit more, if that's possible. And, you know, I mean, cars are not. What did you want us to look at is really what I would say. Like,
Somebody said, if you do landscapes, women seem to be really interested in landscapes at an art fair. And if they're gonna come in looking at landscapes, try to have something for the guys to look at.
Okay, so I totally get what you're saying. Then, but for the picture, then my question is, what would you want me to look at in this picture? Like, what is the thing? Is it the headlight, for instance?
In other words, what's the
It
subject?
turns out, yeah, the story on the back, it turns out that was the first truck to have bright work on it after World War II. That truck and that chrome, that was the first time chrome appeared after being absent for about 5 years. But historically, it was kind of interesting. Nobody got to have chrome on cars for 4 years because of World War II.
To me, this would have made a great black and white. Push the contrast a bit, this would have been a terrific black and white.
Especially with the chrome story.
Yeah. Again, it shows movement. This is a little less movement than the other one had, which is nice. I like it better.
Quite hot.
Yeah. It has hot spots in it, but when you're doing that kind of a stuff, you don't control the lighting at all, but you have to control it in post-production somewhat. You need to sometimes go in and grab that area and pull it down a little bit, exposure-wise. This, to me, it's a good image. It would have been a little stronger had you had a little more flow to that water. It's the shutter speed's on this pretty quick. Had you done, say, a full second, 2 seconds, it would have had a nice flow to the water. To me, it would have been a little gentler looking.
I'm just learning that. There was literally there 2 days ago doing exactly that. Okay. Recapturing it.
Where was that at?
This is Virginia Creek on the east side of the Sierra, up above Lone Pine.
It's a nice image, but it's confusing to me. What is the subject? Is it the sky? Is it the trees? Is it, you know? It almost looks like the sky was added after the fact.
That's a moderate focus stack in the foreground shot during blue hour, and then a equatorial tracker done doing the Milky Way, which is a little bit off to get the foreground out of the way because you can't track a foreground, it will blow it all out. So that's normal for doing this kind of Milky Way stuff too. You have to be able to shoot the Milky Way at ISO 100 and for a 10-minute exposure to bring out the colors. That's the row Ophiuchi in the upper right. So what I've been learning is a good Milky Way has the dark horse, the gas lanes, and row Ophiuchi, and you want to go for try to get 5 shades of color in the row, which means you've got that takes a really low ISO. That's more technical, but it's kind of the hallmarks of getting a good Milky Way.
Had you brought your foreground of that down in your exposure, it would have made that sky pop a little bit more. You didn't have to raise exposure to see it, but had you brought the foreground, our eyes would have been drawn more to the sky than the foreground. In my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think whenever when everything is kind of the same tonality, it's just kind of flat, you know. And so if this was darker, then I would want to look more into that sky, which is, you know, beautiful.
That was snow in downtown Redlands.
Yeah, snow in
for the first
Redlands.
time in 50 years, so I had to get it.
Down.
I had to run down there.
It's nice. I mean, it's very nice. I probably would have cropped the bottom out just a bit, maybe up to this point right here.
I take it you're selling these?
Oh, I had them at the fair.
Okay, and so what's so nice about that, though, in your case, and for this, is that people know this spot
Yeah.
around here, and so they have their own story there, kind of like Robert was talking about earlier. They have their own story there, and so they have a picture like this. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
Versus
Well, the story on the back, I didn't even know it was a global movement. It started in Portugal like 15 years ago.
What they wrong with the umbrellas?
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, this is this is a little more than a little too hot for me. That's pretty much blown out. I take it this is some sort of an arch that you're looking through.
I've done a series of these. That whole formation is about 3 inches tall. So I'm up really close. This one was probably an 80 image focus stack shot at twilight. And then later on, the tracker done to capture the Milky Way behind it. But on the back, I've done each of them should have a iPhone scouting shot that shows the exact orientation, the alignment at that time where the Milky Way was. I've just reassembled them to match what was actually in the sky.
See, had you taken this detail down a little bit, and not equaled it to this exposure up here, would have been, to me, a stronger image.
Okay.
And you didn't need this spot. It
Okay.
just pulls you away from.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Looks like monolith.
Yes. I've never seen anything like
This
that.
is at Mono Lake.
You're right.
These are called tufa formations. That little thing, I call this from the temple, that little thing in the back is about 2 inches tall.
Yeah,
And
down
so I'm
by
about,
Navy Beach.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
about half it from the upper left corner,
Yeah.
I'm about half inch away from the camera lens at that point, and it goes to about 12 inches back. So this one was about a 90 image stack.
See, Carl, teeny tiny things.
Yeah.
The Milky Way is not teeny tiny.
Yeah, but the other thing is that it's his category X.
Horton, here's a who.
Some stuff is usually with 14 millimeter. And when it's 14, it's too hard.
Yes, those are
14 might have, yeah.
so clear. You can tell that all the pictures are by the same.
Yeah.
The images are good images, but they need some tweaking.
Hmm.
You know, like this is too hot up here, this is way too hot. This could have been brought down a little bit. I like the fact that it sort of recesses into the darkness there.
Yeah.
That's nice. This corner, you almost could have made that disappear. My eye keeps wanting to go to this and this.
And then this little thing.
That's not technical.
So,
He's got a style though.
yeah.
He's recognizable.
Yeah.
Absolutely has a style, and it's just working your style to be exactly the way you want it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're all, you can tell it's the same person, but
Oh, yeah.
if you have it, like it looks so otherworldly, if it was something like that, would you want to make those changes? I mean, I see the little cleanups, but would you want to make those changes even though there's hot spots or, there's that little, like the little arch that's only 3 inches tall? Would you want to do that kind of adjustment or change?
Again, the eye, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you took one of the images as it is, and then you take it and rework it and look at it, you're gonna get 2 different opinions, which is the better one. It's always what it says to the viewer. And again, this is just my opinion on stuff, that's all.
But you said something interesting earlier that you want an image to remind people of places they know. And when you said that, I wrote something that I said, I want to be able to show people places they've never seen, that they may have looked at, they've never seen. I mean, to me, that's one of the fun things about being autistic. I don't see things the same way normal people do. So why not try to show that?
Well, your Navy Beach ones, the last couple that you had, I shot down there once, and in fact, I remember I came home and showed it to my wife. And I says, how tall do you think these are? Oh, man, they're gonna be, 15 feet. I said, yeah, they're about this tall.
Yeah.
So, perspective is always important.
And for your portfolio, most of these are places where I wouldn't necessarily recognize, right? So that's good, except for the one that was in Redlands, when it's like, that would be the one I would like to kick up, because I've seen that, right? For what you're saying you want
I
your
like
vision.
that otherworldly.
Okay.
I like that. I really do. I like it.
Let's go with
Well,
that.
Being on the time, it's not first when you're talking.
Yeah.
I had it on my list for 4 years.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd just like to say while they're setting up, like, thanks to people who have put these out, because it takes a lot of guts to have your work critiqued so thoroughly. It's one thing to do it in a competition, but it's all anonymous. we only find out later when we give out ribbons, who did what. But you guys are sitting here listening to this, I give you guys props right now for like sitting here listening to them. Judge.
Taking the
And it's interesting, when I am judging or something like that, I always like to talk to the maker.
Yeah.
Because again, it's only my opinion, my thoughts based on, my experiences.
Sure.
And sometimes when you have that chance to communicate with the maker, they may say something that's like, oh, okay, that's why it's that way.
Yeah, I get that.
It becomes more personal.
I watch movies sometimes that I hate, and then I watch the extras after just to find out what the director was thinking. And then I may never watch the movie again, but I appreciate it more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
So I think, I don't know, who's the maker for these ones? So I think that you're traveling around, you're taking some landscape. Yep, Sierras, and you have some nice shots here. I think that if you're going to try and go to like that next level of your photography, there's some things to really think about, right? And I don't know where you had these printed or what the images look like. But like this one, for instance, if it's a landscape, all the boats, the time of day, that you're taking this would have been better, right? If you've been maybe earlier in the morning, because you kind of get this kind of flat image, right, going on here. And then the boats they take you out of the serenity of place.
These books, we keep in mind,
Okay.
they might not work.
Yeah, maybe you cropped it up a little bit. And it's not that I'm not a fan of a good vignette, but I don't know that you needed it so much here. Other, sorry.
Okay, a couple things I noticed in just doing a flip through real quick. On some of them you have, when you're shooting landscape, if you guys have ever shot landscape, there's three things that are important. Foreground, middle ground, background. Yeah, you really have to have all three of those to make a landscape work. And sometimes if you can frame it with an overhanging branch of a tree or something like that, you have that in some of these. This one, you don't. This one, you really don't. You need, in any good, strong landscape image, you have to have a foreground or some fixed rock or something there, a middle ground, and then far distant background. And you do on a lot of these, but half of them you don't. So it sort of goes back and forth. They're good, strong images, but they've got to be more consistent than that. Yeah, like here, you have a foreground. You don't really have a middle ground. You almost go immediately to here. The background is the sky. This becomes your middle ground, which is a long ways away. Russ.
So sometimes as I've listened to different people talk about landscapes, sometimes what you want to sit there and do is maybe do a photo stacking of the image where you shoot the foreground so it's in focus, you shoot the middle ground so it's in focus, and then you shoot the foreground so it's in focus, and then you photo stack them so that way everything is sharp all the way through the photo.
You can do that. Or you can, sure, most of you are familiar with hyper focus, where you set your aperture to a certain, you want to be careful, especially in digital, about closing that aperture down a lot. When you start getting down to like f32, 64, you start creating a lot of, let's call them artifacts that you don't want in there. So focus stacking is a better resolution of that. But, as you're doing your depth of field, let's say, sometimes that'll take care of that. But if you have something really close, it's 6 inches away, you almost have to do a focus stacking. Now see, this one has a nice foreground. You have the middle ground, the background's the sky and the sunset. And it's framed. The framing is the cave.
Not sure what I'm supposed to look at in this.
That's an arch, industrial tree.
I know it's an arch. What am I supposed to look at? Am I supposed to look at the arch and stars or this?
Yeah.
The subject doesn't stand out to me of like, that was the thing that you saw that was so cool that you wanted other people to see it. And that when they look at the picture, they too will see it.
We been here a lot of times. I always see this as a snakehead. And if you
Yeah.
back off, you're sitting on the other side with the wide angle, you see that whole thing. Now, the fact, first thing that popped out, you have two verticals, works well. But you have no foreground here. And you have a lot more in the reflection than you have in the sky. That needs to be equal. Because all that water is sort of wasted.
I like this one.
Yeah. That Santa Fe?
Oh, Living Desert.
Oh, okay.
Very different than the rest of your pictures though.
Yeah.
So this is like one of those did it belong in this one? But yeah, looks fun.
It's nice, but it sort of doesn't belong with the portfolio. That would have been a great one for doors, let's say. Something like that. I take it we have this one too, Russ?
Yes, you do. And the makers here also.
Ah,
A little bit more over to the left, Bob. There you go.
no. What's the subject? Who's the maker? What's the subject?
It's a project I've been working on since 2007 called, costumes for, uniforms and regalia.
Okay,
What we consider that, this is just the, uniforms.
okay.
Another back.
Take it away.
Yes, I was.
Okay. This might have worked better as a horizontal because you cut off what the subject is here. It's a SWAT person on the San Bernardino Police Department undertaking it.
Yeah.
But again, I look at that and it's like Bernardino, it needs to be complete. It's when you crop something off, it's confusing. And as a horizontal, you would have been able to still see all that and still see your subject. Your subject's a little hot. The face is hot, and you always want to see the subject's eyes, even if they wear glasses, have them take them off. Here, they're,
Wasn't allowed to. Wasn't allowed to.
okay.
He was fired about a week after I took that photo. Because of that photo.
Really?
Yes.
That's a shame.
Great guy though.
Is the address important on this one?
No,
Not at all.
I would have taken the address out in Lightroom or Photoshop.
no, watch the speed.
Brian, was this for photojournalism?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a photojournalist, so I
Okay.
don't even own Photoshop.
You cut the feet off. You gotta have the feet. Because you have plenty of space up there. You have, 2 feet above her head, but you cut 6 inches off of her foot.
So just think about moving around, zoom the photojournalism to look at that background and get the things out that you don't want there in advance.
Yeah, these are all from around 2007 through about 2010.
The face, look at the face, it's mostly in shadow. And had you turned the subject to their right, it would have had all the light you needed on that face. All it would have taken is maybe 30 degrees to the right.
I like this one a lot. If it had been 5 seconds later, she wouldn't have been in it. And, that would have made it that much cleaner, but
When you're taking a photo of a police officer in China,
yeah.
Yeah.
you do what you can before you get arrested.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I like that one. I think that's one of your stronger ones.
Now, up to this point, it's been law enforcement. I thought that's what we were going for.
Yeah.
In some way, it was like some sort of law enforcement, and then we get to Liberty Tax, and I was like, different. Because then he said costumes, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
Actually, this is a uniform.
Uniform,
This is what.
but not law enforcement.
No.
Uh,
Homeless guy.
no, it's a good image. You can't see the face at all, but I'm assuming that's part of,
Yeah, that was the reason, one reason
Yeah.
why.
and you didn't cut the feet off. Looks good.
You probably couldn't ask him to move to not be right in front of the parking sign, but if you could have, that would have been nice.
And I'll give you $20 if you know what that is.
I was gonna say, you always gotta see the eyes, but I'm gonna say,
Yeah, you don't want to see the
Yeah.
eyes. I'm assuming
That is-
some sort of hazmat.
No,
no,
No?
is it,
Fire?
this is a costume though, because they're
no,
wearing a
that is,
seatbelt.
that was taken at the San Marino
Hmm.
airport when they're doing fire training on airplanes.
Okay.
That can withstand 8,000 degrees.
Wow.
And-
Asbestos underwear.
Yeah, so that is full uniform. It weighs about 150 pounds.
Wow.
Again, though, if you turned them, I think you could have gotten a little more light on the front. Possibly. And also, the time of day is just, clearly it was like the sun was straight overhead.
That's all they do it.
Yeah.
Middle of the day when there's it's about 100 degrees outside, everything.
Yeah.
General.
So, I mean, the things that we've said so far, like, you got the feet, he's in uniform. This one, because the people are included in the background and he's in a like dress regalia, it doesn't tell me much of a story at all, right? It's just like guy in uniform. Are we at a funeral? Are we at like the background? The people are there, but I don't know why. And so, and all this top is useless. But I'm sure there's a story here.
4-star general was able to get a photograph of them.
That's the story.
You have to realize, I did all these basically when I was in college.
Okay.
He was fired after I took this photo.
What? You should probably not take it.
It's illegal to take photos of the PSA agents.
Wow. White balance, here you have tungsten lighting, obviously it turned everything yellow, could have been easily corrected in post. I like this one.
Yeah. And if they fired him.
That is a World War
You know,
I bet.
He cut his feet off, but
I
for some
would-
reason on this image, to me, it almost doesn't matter. This is the subject right here.
Yeah, that is a World War I bet.
Yeah,
And that-
you almost could have come in and done that. So
Just.
the smile, the proudness, that's a good image.
Mhm.
A little hot, but you've got a lot of white here to deal with and the light of that. I know these pants are typically darker, a little darker blue, so you could have pulled this down 2/3 of a stop.
That was, that was their old uniform for the summer. They
Okay,
got rid of that. 2000 and.
again, lighting, it's all about lighting and his whole face is in shadow here.
Well, you probably do this now since you took these in college, but one thing that you could potentially have done since the sun was coming in this way is I imagine the building is right here. If you backed up against the building, just that the wall behind you has a reflector on them.
There was no wall.
No wall, where are you?
St. Regis?
The wallless St. Regis.
No, that was where I was.
Oh,
Yeah,
And that
What
was.
about Phil Flash on all of those backlit? But they're all backlit,
yeah,
yeah, but
and Phil Flash would have fixed it.
it would have, but then you'd have to, because most of your cameras are going to sync at 200th of a second, 250th. And obviously, he's probably shooting at 1,000th of a second, 1250.
yeah.
So you're gonna have to go into a high-speed sync and
Right.
a reflector, just a small reflector, because all he needed to light was the face. That's all you needed. Stephanie.
So when you're doing photojournalism, especially when these people are posing, you're not getting them in the middle of action. It can still be photojournalism if you asked them to move.
Or you move, they don't have to
Yeah.
move.
Yeah, because they're
Sometimes all
not
you've gotta
doing
do is step
anything.
this
Just-
far,
Yeah,
and it changes the lighting, the position, the background, things going onto their heads. Photojournalism is a lot tougher because
right.
if you're in an image competition, you're not supposed to pose them. And if you tell them to move, you're posing them. So
But if you move, then,
it's still photojournalism.
yeah.
I can show you.
So I think as a portfolio, overall, right? The things that I would think is maybe putting them in order so that you have this kind of like I said, there was like law enforcement and there was what seemed to be like
There's a total
costumes.
right now, I have about 25 of them.
Okay.
So,
And then the other thing that I think about when looking at yours is if it was about costumes and uniforms and things like that, is almost all of them do have this same, it's a full body thing, which I think is great and it's your style. I really like this one. But would you consider, if you were building it out more, right, have been able to get detail shots? If you were like thinking about doing that, where you're like, use that zoom lens to come in closer into a badge or a section of it,
50
like,
millimeter lens,
Well-
one camera, 30 seconds, all I have.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like, if you were thinking about like, oh, I want to build this
I'm
different.
going to be working with the fire department, doing something like that for Robert, the Irving stuff. And he had those, the guys holding like the old fashioned, parts of the fire hoses. And all that. We may do that with the fire department.
Plus, if you went in and got details, they probably fired without retirement.
Yeah.
Oh, he fired that gun on me.
Long lens. Two
There you go.
cameras. There you go. 2 cameras.
Any questions you guys have?
Yeah, I did the pools and I appreciate the lighting. All of those shots were JPEGs right out of the camera, no post. So, okay, that's kind of like what I'm trying to, so the lighting I'm gonna think about. And that's the first portfolio I've ever put together, so.
No,
Thank you for your input.
That's why we do this. I've been doing this for way too many years. And, I have all that experience behind me. And one of the things I'll tell somebody when I teach it, we all start at the same place at the beginning. There was a day when I knew nothing about this stuff. And it took me a long time to learn what an aperture was. 1.2 sounds like it should be a lot smaller than a 22 or an f/16. I didn't understand that for the longest time. It was, ass backwards. So, it takes time to learn this stuff. Hopefully, eventually it becomes a little bit like second nature. You look immediately for the light. Is that too dark? Is it too light? If it's too dark, I'm just gonna step over a little bit or I'm gonna change my shutter speed, my aperture, something like that. It only comes from time and experience and making mistakes and more mistakes and more mistakes. And you learn from those.
And I think when looking at portfolios and then seeing some of those images like his poodles there, so that there is a difference between capturing an image and creating an image. And, some of these, like these ones, these are captured images, right? Like, I'm like, it would be nice if you could do this, but you can't, they're captured images. And sometimes captured images can be absolutely wonderful, like you're poodle noodling the neck. I have in my house a print of my daughter at Christmas, and I just gotten a brand new 85 millimeter lens, and I'm just like messing around with it, low light, and she's like cracking up about probably like a fart joke, right? And I'm just like, click. When I saw it, I was like, that was great. I did nothing to create that image, right? But I printed it and I put it on my mantle because it's beautiful of her, right? And so I love that one. And then there's other images where like, oh no, I've created this, right? Like I have set lights and I brought reflectors and I've picked out what you're wearing and we're gonna do this at this time of day, exactly. We're creating an image. And those both hold in all the portfolios, I think, their own space, right? And so you just have to figure out when you're putting them together, what does that mean, right? Because it would be somewhat disingenuous of me to say to my clients, like, look, I'm going to always capture this authentic smile in the moment. I mean, I will do my best, but it doesn't always happen, right? So you're creating a lot of images instead. So I loved it and thank you for having us.
Thank you.